On the 11th and 12th of April, Islamabad, the capital of Pakistan, hosted high-level talks between the United States and Iran. This followed the 40-day war involving the U.S., Israel and Iran that had pushed the region towards a wider escalation. These were the first direct talks at this level in decades. The talks were initiated after a provisional 14-day ceasefire was brokered. The discussions focused on three major issues: Iran's nuclear program, U.S. sanctions, and security in the region, including key shipping routes.
The bad news is that we have not reached an agreement, and I think that's bad news for Iran much more than it's bad news for the United States of America.
But after nearly 21 hours of negotiations, there was no final deal. The ceasefire holds for now, but both sides remain far apart on core issues.
در مورد یک سری از موضوعات ما به تفاهم‌هایی رسیدیم واقعا.
We reached understandings on a number of issues. That's the reality. However, regarding 2 or 3 important issues, the views were distant and ultimately did not lead to an agreement.
و نهایتاً منجر به توافق نشد این گفتگوها. این آخرین وضعیت هست که من میتونم خدمتتون اعلام بکنم.
Well, we're going to be blockading. It'll take a little while, but it'll be effective pretty soon. And we had meetings yesterday. They, as you said, lasted 21 hours. That was a long meeting. We had some very, very good representatives, as you know, JD and Steve and Jared. So we were well represented, but we didn't get there on the important issue. They want to have nuclear weapons. They're not going to have nuclear weapons. I've been saying that for 30 years. I would never allow that to happen before I was in politics. And that country will not have nuclear weapons.
The talks also ended without resolving one critical point: the Strait of Hormuz. Soon after the talks, Donald Trump made his position clear. In a social media post, he said the U.S. Navy would immediately start blockading the Strait of Hormuz and interdict every vessel in international waters that paid a toll to Iran. This comes as the strait has become the center of the crisis. Iran has restricted movement through the strait, one of the world's most critical shipping lanes. Around 20% of the global oil trade passes through this route. What we are seeing is a shift. This is not just a war on land or through missiles. It is a struggle for control over waterways. From the Strait of Hormuz to the Panama Canal and the Red Sea. Global powers are focusing on strategic routes. Are we entering an era of water wars? Who really controls the world's most critical waterways? And when diplomacy fails, does naval might decide the future of global power? What does the law of the sea say about such conflict zones? We tell you on WION Wideangle this week. Iran's navy isn't the largest, but it is among the region's most formidable. Its naval power is divided into 2 parts: the regular navy and the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps Navy, or the IRGC Navy. The regular navy operates larger warships and submarines focused on defense and long-range operations, whereas the IRGC Navy is known for asymmetric warfare using fast attack boats, naval mines, drones, and shore-based missiles. In the recent war, which involved the United States, Israel, and Iran, Iran's naval strategy has been clear. Instead of direct naval battles, it has used threats, restrictions, and control of key sea routes.
This is Iranian Sepah Navy. If you see any warship in your vicinity, keep a distance more than 10 miles from them, because I'm ready to open fire on them without any warning.
the IRGC Navy has been deployed across the Persian Gulf, targeting shipping movements, monitoring traffic, and projecting control over critical waters. Even as Iran's conventional naval assets face damage, Iran has doubled down with fast boats, mines, and missiles to sustain relentless pressure. The Strait of Hormuz is one of the world's most critical maritime routes. It is a narrow waterway, just about 48 kilometers wide at its narrowest, connecting the Persian Gulf to the Gulf of Oman and the Arabian Sea. Every day, about 20% of the world's oil and huge LNG volumes move through here. Iran has always been central to the strait because it sits along its northern coast. Over the years, Iran has repeatedly used the strait as a strategic tool. During the 1980s Iran-Iraq war, both sides targeted oil tankers in what was called the tanker war. Since then, Iran has often threatened to close or restrict the strait, especially during periods of tension with the West. The current blockade of the Strait of Hormuz began after the American and Israeli strikes on Iran on the 28th of February. In response, Iran restricted shipping through the strait.
This is Sepah Navy, Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps Navy. From now on, all navigating through the Strait of Hormuz is forbidden.
It issued warnings to ships, targeted some vessels, and reportedly deployed mines in the water. The United States has also started a naval blockade of maritime traffic entering and leaving Iranian ports. Led by over 10,000 personnel and Navy ships, the U.S. is trying to stop maritime trade into and out of Iran. The blockade covers areas in the Gulf of Oman and the Eastern Arabian Sea adjacent to the Strait of Hormuz. Though the United States said no vessels broke through its blockade of Iranian ports in the initial 24 hours, maritime analysts report that a limited number of vessels continued to transit the strait. British maritime intelligence company Windward observed unusual vessel behavior, including ships turning away, switching off their automatic identification systems and reducing speed, which are signs that vessels are reassessing routes due to heightened risks. Shipping analytics firm Kepler said at least 9 merchant vessels passed through the Strait of Hormuz since the blockade began. Before the war, more than 100 vessels transited the Strait of Hormuz each day. The current traffic has fallen to less than 10% of that level as per shipping data. The Strait of Hormuz, a pressure point, or call it a global choke point. There are very few alternatives to move such large volumes of energy. Any disruption here immediately impacts global oil prices, trade, and supply chains. That is why control over this waterway has always been a point of contention between Iran, the US, and other global powers. Moving forward, it's important to examine how Iran maintains dominance over its crucial waterways. Iran's dominance doesn't rely on giant warships. It comes from geography and deployment. The IRGC Navy operates from strategic islands and coastal bases, including key locations near the mouth of the Gulf. Missile batteries are placed along the coastline. Fast attack boats are hidden in tunnels, ready to be deployed quickly. Submarines and drones add another layer of threat. This creates a system where Iran can monitor, target, and if needed, disrupt any vessel passing through. The Strait of Hormuz is not just a strategic point, it is a global trade route. By asserting control here, Iran is able to influence global supply chains At the same time, its naval presence in the Persian Gulf and the Gulf of Oman helps it secure its own territorial waters and project power across the region. On the 27th of March, the IRGC stated that the strait is closed to any vessel going to and from the ports of the United States, Israel and their allies. This closure, many analysts say, breaches the UN Convention on the Law of the Sea by denying transit in a strait used for international shipping.
Present, because of the crisis, because of the conflict, it is not safe for the ships to transit through these corridors, and this is what is actually stopping this. But legally speaking, in accordance to international law, no countries have the right to prohibit the right of innocent passage or the freedom of navigation through international straits that are used for international transit.
The Strait of Hormuz is not the only contested waterway in the world. Across these regions, controlling a waterway means holding power over trade, security and access. Let's take a look. To the west of Hormuz lies the Red Sea. It is a long, narrow body of water lying between the African continent and the Arabian Peninsula. It connects the Mediterranean Sea to the Indian Ocean through the Suez Canal in the north and the Bab al-Mandeb Strait in the south. The Red Sea is one of the busiest trade routes in the world. According to the International Monetary Fund, 12% to 15% of global trade, including oil, gas and consumer goods, passes through the Red Sea via the Suez Canal annually, making it one of the world's most critical maritime routes. It handles roughly 30% of global container traffic and facilitates over $1 trillion in trade, connecting Asia and Europe. It is also a shortcut between Europe and Asia, making it critical for shipping and global supply chains. Any disruption here forces ships to take longer routes. The detour adds time and cost. The Red Sea is surrounded by multiple countries, including Egypt, Saudi Arabia, Sudan, Eritrea and Yemen. This makes it a geopolitical hotspot. Control over ports, islands and coastlines in this region directly translates into control over shipping lanes. Global powers, including the U.S. and China, maintain a military presence nearby to secure their trade interests. Regional and global players are all invested in the Red Sea. Saudi Arabia and Egypt for economic and security reasons, the United States to protect international shipping routes, China, the country is expanding its trade and infrastructure network in the region, and Iran supplies and supports Houthi rebels in Yemen. The security vulnerability of the Red Sea was witnessed in 2023 in retaliation for Israel's offensive on Gaza. The Houthis based in Yemen carried out a series of attacks on ships in the Red Sea in 2023. These included missile and drone strikes targeting vessels they claimed were linked to their adversaries. The attacks forced major oil companies such as BP and a slew of freight firms, including Maersk, to divert their shipments. These shipments were normally made through the Suez Canal around the Cape of Good Hope. The new route, all the way around Africa, added days to the journey, times, and cost more for a growing list of companies avoiding the Red Sea. Let's take a look at some statistics. About 12% of the world shipping traffic usually transits via the Suez Canal. It is the shortest shipping route between Europe and Asia, passing into the Red Sea waters off Yemen. Normally about 11,800 voyages are made each month through the Suez Canal, some 393 a day. Remember, after the 1967 Six-Day War between Israel and the Arab nations, Egypt closed the Suez Canal until 1975. It led to the 1970s energy crisis and the 1973 oil crisis. Due to a shutdown of oil deliveries coming to Europe from West Asia through the Suez Canal. In March 2021, the Suez Canal was blocked for 6 days. the container ship ever given ran aground in the canal, causing the incident. The blockade significantly slowed down trade between Europe, Asia and West Asia. Another critical waterway that has been in focus is the Panama Canal in the continent of North America. On the 6th of April, an explosion near the Panama Canal raised fresh concerns about the security of global trade routes. A fuel tanker blast under the Bridge of the Americas near the canal's Pacific entrance killed at least one person and injured others. The fire spread to multiple tankers, forcing authorities to temporarily shut the bridge and assess structural damage. The exact cause of the explosion is still under investigation, but it highlights how vulnerable key infrastructure around the canal can be. The Panama Canal is one of the most important man-made waterways in the world. It connects the Atlantic Ocean to the Pacific Ocean, cutting through Panama in Central America. Opened in 1914, it allows ships to avoid a long and costly journey around South America. The canal is a major shortcut for global trade. Approximately 2.5 to 6% of the total global maritime trade passes through the Panama Canal in an average year, serving as a critical artery for roughly $270 billion in cargo annually. It plays a key role in linking Asia, the Americas and Europe. Any disruption here can delay shipments, increase costs and impact global supply chains. The Panama Canal is controlled by the government of Panama. The United States built and controlled it for decades, but handed it over to Panama in 1999 under a treaty. Today, it is operated by the Panama Canal Authority. However, U.S. President Donald Trump has vowed to take control back, alleging treaty breaches and security risks involving China. He labeled its 1999 handover as a foolish gift. The U.S. currently retains rights under the treaty to protect the canal's neutrality through military force. Despite being under Panamanian control, the canal remains a strategic asset of global interest. Major powers, including the U.S. and China, depend on it for trade and shipping. Any disruption, whether due to accidents, climate or security threat, has global consequences. In the recent years, low water levels, congestion and geopolitical tensions have all added to these concerns. The South China Sea is a strategically vital, highly contested marginal sea in the Western Pacific Ocean. It is bordered primarily by China, Taiwan, the Philippines, Malaysia, Brunei, Indonesia and Vietnam. It connects major shipping routes, linking the Pacific and Indian Oceans. The South China Sea is one of the busiest trade routes in the world. It carries $3 trillion in trade annually. The sea is a resource-rich area and is believed to have significant reserves of oil and natural gas. In addition, it is also a major fishing zone supporting millions of livelihoods. There is no single authority that controls the South China Sea. However, China claims a large portion of it based on its 9-dash line, a U-shaped demarcation on maps used by the country to claim sovereignty over roughly 90% of the sea. Other countries, including the Philippines and Vietnam, have rejected these claims. An international tribunal in 2016 had ruled against China's expansive claims, but Beijing has not accepted the ruling. Control over islands, reefs and waters can extend a country's influence and access to resources. Over the years, China has built artificial islands and military facilities to strengthen its presence. This has led to rising tensions with neighboring countries. Recently, the Philippines accused Chinese fishermen of dumping cyanide in the South China Sea. Manila described the alleged poisoning as an act of sabotage. intended to kill local fish populations and deprive Filipino troops stationed at the second Hormuz shoal of a crucial food source. The Indian Ocean is the third largest ocean in the world. It is surrounded by Asia, Africa and Australia and connects major sea routes between east and west. It links key waterways including the Strait of Hormuz, the Bab al-Mandeb Strait and the Strait of Malacca. Unlike narrow straits or canals, the Indian Ocean is vast. But it is just as critical when it comes to global trade and strategic control. The Indian Ocean is a critical global waterway, acting as a vital lifeline for 80% of the world's maritime oil trade and connecting major economies across Asia, Africa and Europe. It is essential for global energy security, hosting key choke points like the Strait of Malacca, and holds massive strategic, economic and climatic importance. Any disruption here can impact energy supplies, trade flows and global markets. India plays a central role given its geographic position in the ocean. The United States has a military presence, including bases and naval deployments, mainly in Diego Garcia, and China has been trying to expand its reach through port investments and naval activities. The Indian Ocean is contested because of its location and trade value. Control over sea lanes here means control over energy routes and global shipping. In recent years, competition has increased, particularly between India and China. India's geographic position places it close to major sea lanes, including routes used for energy shipments from the Middle East. Over the years, India has expanded its naval capabilities, increased patrols, and strengthened ties with regional partners to maintain stability in these waters. China's presence through port projects in places like Gwadar in Pakistan and Hambantota in Sri Lanka is often seen as an attempt to secure its trade routes. As West Asia tensions continue to grim, the high seas have turned into a battle zone. The 1982 United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea governs all maritime activities, including territorial rights, navigation, and environmental protection. But with the current war and other conflict zones around the world, this assertion is challenged in practice. The question now is not just about diplomacy or de-escalation. It is about who controls these critical waterways and whether that control will define the next phase of global power politics.